Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to look at some wild stories of r/no sleep. For those tuning in for the first time, each day I read real stories from Reddit, perfect for decompressing, finding a moment of tranquility, or simply enjoying a quiet break during your studies. Before we dive in, share in the comments where you're tuning in from, and if you're keen on more content of this nature, make sure to hit that subscribe button. So get comfortable, prepare your favorite snack, and let's begin exploring today's stories. The empty aquarium I guard every night isn't empty anymore. I'm 29 male, and I work as a night security guard at what used to be the Hudson Bay Aquarium and Marine Life Center. Used to be. It closed in 2014 after funding ran out, and several unexplained incidents scared the last few staff into quitting. Now, the city's restoring it into a maritime museum, which means they pay me to sit in the dark and make sure no one breaks in or falls through the half-rotted floors. The job's easy, mostly boring, except between 1:30 and 1:40 a.m. That's when the knocking starts. The aquarium's layout is a maze. The main exhibit hall, Ocean Gallery A, used to have 16 tanks along both sides, from tropical reef fish to sea lions. Now most are dry, glass panels fogged with salt residue, cracked pipes dangling like ribs. The center tank though, the largest, Tank 9, is still sealed. It used to house the deep sea exhibit. No one's refilled it since the place shut down. You can see right through it now, nothing inside but dust and the skeleton of an old filtration unit. At least that's what I thought. My shift starts at 10 p.m. I check the perimeter, scan my keycard at each station, and then sit in the old gift shop drinking bad coffee while the ocean-themed clock ticks slow enough to hurt. For the first few weeks, everything was normal. Until one night last winter, when I heard it, faint at first, then unmistakable. Tap, 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 3 knocks, slow, from glass. At first I thought it was the building settling or pipes shifting from the cold, but the rhythm repeated, 3 knocks, pause, then 2 more. I followed the sound into Ocean Gallery A. The air in there was heavy, that damp chemical smell of old seawater and algae. The lights overhead flickered in and out. When I reached the center of the room, I stopped breathing. It was coming from Tank 9. The glass was fogged over, but I could see faint condensation forming where the sound came from. Tap, 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 3, then 2, and underneath it, faint, almost imagined, I swear I heard a voice. Not words, just a low vibration, like someone humming underwater. I stood there for a full minute before forcing myself to walk up and touch the glass. Cold, wet. When I pulled my hand back, there was moisture on my fingertips. I told the project manager Marcus the next morning. He said, "Condensation, that tank still leaks from humidity changes. It's physics, not ghosts." He was right, probably, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the knocking had been intentional. 3 nights later it happened again, this time louder. The sound echoed through the empty halls like a heartbeat. I went to Tank 9 with my flashlight. The fog on the inside of the glass was thicker now, and in the middle of it, drawn with a fingertip, were 5 words. "Do you hear me now?" I took a step back so fast I tripped over my radio. When I got up, the writing was gone. The fog had cleared completely. I left early that night, didn't even clock out. Update: 1 week later, I tried to quit. Marcus laughed and said, "You're our only night guard who hasn't stolen equipment or fallen asleep on camera. Just wear headphones if it creeps you out." So I came back. For the first few hours it was fine. I even convinced myself that maybe I'd hallucinated. Sleep deprivation does weird things. At 1:33 a.m., I was sitting in the control booth when every monitor went black. Then the PA system, which hasn't worked in years, crackled to life. A burst of static, then a sound like bubbles rising through water, and underneath it, faint, melodic, a woman's voice, humming, the same tone I'd heard under the knocking. It lasted exactly 30 seconds before cutting out. When I checked the monitors again, only one camera had come back, the one facing Tank 9. The glass was clear now, too clear, and floating behind it, or maybe pressed against it, was the faint shape of a face, pale, distorted, eyes wide, like a reflection, except mine wasn't in the room. Then the monitor went black again. I started digging after that. The local library had old news clippings from when the aquarium was open. In 2009, they'd installed a new deep sea life exhibit. The centerpiece was a rare species of bioluminescent jellyfish, collected off the coast of Nova Scotia. The lead biologist on the project was Dr. Evelyn Shaw. She specialized in deep ocean ecosystems. Every article about the aquarium quoted her, smiling, confident, talking about the mysteries of the abyss. In 2013, she disappeared. Official report, boating accident. Her body was never recovered. The aquarium closed 6 months later. Tank 9 had been her research exhibit. After reading that, I started paying attention. The next night, I brought an EMF meter, not because I'm a believer, but because curiosity is a stupid, powerful thing. At exactly 1:33 a.m., the needle spiked. Tank 9's readings went off the chart, even though there's no active wiring in that hall. Then the water sound came again, that muffled liquid thump, 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 like waves hitting glass. Except now, there really was water. I swear it. The bottom of the tank, dry for nearly a decade, was slick and shimmering. Something was filling it from inside. I leaned closer and realized it wasn't water at all. It was thicker, viscous. It had the faint blue shimmer of bioluminescence. It rose an inch, then two. Something moved inside, a slow, coiling silhouette, almost human, but stretched, like the figure was bending in gravity that didn't belong to our world. I ran, didn't go back for 2 nights. When I finally did, the liquid was gone, tank dry again, but the glass now had something etched into it. Faint scratch marks like fingernails. 4 words, help me go back. I didn't touch it. I didn't even breathe near it. But I noticed something else. The control room security logs showed the door to Ocean Gallery A had been unlocked at 1:30 a.m. Both nights I wasn't there. Marcus said maybe contractors had come early, but no one had signed in. Update, 2 nights ago. The PA system played again, not humming this time. A voice. Daniel, my name. I froze. Daniel, are you listening? It was faint, echoing like someone speaking through water. The lights in Ocean Gallery A started flickering one by one from the far end toward me. When the final light over Tank 9 came on, I saw movement inside. This time it wasn't a shape. It was her, Dr. Evelyn Shaw, or what was left of her. Her face was pale blue, hair floating like seaweed, eyes open and clouded. Her hands pressed against the glass from the inside. Bubbles rose from her mouth, but she wasn't breathing. She was smiling. You heard me now, the speaker said, then louder, open it. I ran to the breaker and cut the power. Everything went dark. For a moment, the building was silent again. Then, one by one, the backup lights clicked on, powered by a system that shouldn't have worked anymore. And in that flickering red emergency glow, Tank 9 was no longer empty. It was full. Murky blue water sloshing behind the glass, swirling like a storm. Something moved near the surface, fast. Then the glass bulged outward, as if something inside was pressing to get out. I called Marcus and told him I was done. He showed up at sunrise, cranky and half asleep. By then the tank was empty again. No water, no cracks, no proof. He walked around with his clipboard, sighed and said, "You need a vacation." Then, as we were leaving, he noticed something floating in the bottom of the tank. A small, cracked nameplate, polished brass. It read, Dr. Evelyn Shaw, Marine Biology Division. I swear it hadn't been there before. Update. Last night. I can't explain what happened. I can only tell you what I saw. At 12:55, the entire aquarium's temperature dropped. You could see your breath. Every glass panel in the place fogged over at once, and written across them, all of them, were the same words, not enough water. The sprinklers went off a minute later, except nothing came out of them. Just a fine mist, salty, like sea air. The smell of brine filled every hallway, and from the vents came that same humming again, soft, melodic, almost beautiful. I followed it to Tank 9. This time there was no water, no ghost, just a single diving mask sitting in the center of the floor, still dripping wet. the name written on the strap, E. Shaw. When I picked it up, water poured out of it, more than it could possibly hold. And then the PA crackled again. "Daniel, please," she said. "It's rising." I turned to look at the tank and then realized the floor was wet. Water was seeping out from the cracks between tiles, cold, ankle deep, and still rising. I sprinted to the main doors, but they wouldn't open. The security locks had engaged on their own. The water climbed to my knees, then my waist. I climbed onto a bench, shining my flashlight around. The tank was glowing, soft blue light rippling behind the glass. The shadow inside was larger now, human, but stretched, like something that had been remade out of wrong parts. She pressed her face to the glass again, the same smile. "You can still fix it," she whispered through the speaker. The water reached my chest. I yelled, "Fix what?" "The leak." And that's when I realized she didn't mean this leak. She meant hers. Whatever she'd brought up from the deep before she died, whatever she'd opened, it hadn't stayed down there. And now it wanted out. The power surged. Lights blew out one by one. The last thing I remember before blacking out was the sound of breaking glass. A low, slow crack, like a shell splitting open. When I woke up, it was daylight. The water was gone, everything was dry, except for my clothes and my shoes, full of sand. Marcus found me sitting in front of Tank 9, staring at it. He said the entire room smelled like the ocean, but the tank was empty, completely dry, except... When he walked away, I saw something floating near the bottom again. Not the nameplate this time, a small glass ID badge, laminated. Hudson Bay Aquarium Staff, DM, Night Security, my badge. I still had mine on my belt. That night I stayed home, tried to convince myself it was a dream. At 1:33 a.m, my sink started dripping. When I went to shut it off, the water ran blue for 3 seconds, bioluminescent, and in the bottom of the basin, drawn in condensation, were 2 words, "Not done." Update. This morning, Marcus called. The city's halting renovations. Too many electrical hazards, he said. But when they drained the filtration system, they found something lodged in one of the pipes. A piece of plastic, maybe from an old faceplate. It had part of a label still stuck to it. Shaw Research, Subject 9B. They're sealing the building indefinitely. I told Marcus I was done for good. He didn't argue. But as I was leaving my apartment this afternoon, I noticed something strange. The damp footprints leading from my bathroom to the front door. Bare, small, like a woman's. And under my welcome mat, there was a seashell. Perfectly white, perfectly dry. When I held it to my ear, I didn't hear the ocean. I heard the sound of glass cracking. If you ever pass the Hudson Bay exit off I-84 and see the rusted sign that says aquarium ahead, keep driving. If you stop, you might hear knocking. And if you do, don't knock back. She's still listening, and she's still rising. Next up, I started a night shift cleaning the archives of a university library. The lights in the basement always flicker after 2 a.m, and the old microfilm machines start playing footage that no one ever loaded. Last night, one showed a recording of me from a place I've never been. The microfilm machines in the library basement play footage that was never recorded. I'm 32 male, and I work nights cleaning the archive wing of Rutherford University Library, an old Gothic-style building that feels like it's alive. The walls are lined with stone gargoyles, the floors creak like ribs underfoot, and every room smells like wet paper and dust. The university dates back to 1887. It's older than most of the town, but the basement, that's the real heart of it. That's where they store everything they don't want the public to see. Thousands of reels of microfilm, old student records, government documents, medical files, photographs that never made it to the archives upstairs. I thought I'd be spending my shifts sweeping floors and emptying trash bins, but after my first week, I started noticing that one of the microfilm readers was always on when I came in, even when I unplugged it. The first time it happened, I figured I'd forgotten. I'd been running on caffeine and bad sleep, but then I started paying attention to the timestamps. Every night the same thing. The machine's internal clock read 2:03 a.m. when it powered on by itself, And every time a reel was already loaded into it, one that didn't exist in the catalogue. No label, no case, just an unmarked strip of film. At first, curiosity won. I watched. The footage was black and white, grainy. A static hallway, same stone walls as the basement I was in. No sound except the faint whir of the reel. Then, after about 20 seconds, a figure appeared at the far end of the frame. A man walking slowly toward the camera. The closer he got, the more I realized how wrong it looked. His walk was too smooth, his head too still, like someone gliding instead of stepping. I leaned closer to the screen and realized I could see something behind him. A door, with a small brass sign that said Archives. B, that's my hallway, the one I was standing in. I looked over my shoulder. The real hallway was empty. When I turned back, the man on screen had stopped moving. He was staring straight into the camera, and then in the static he raised his hand, slow, deliberate, and pointed at me. The reel jammed. The light bulb inside the reader blew with a pop, and the film melted in place. I didn't finish my shift. When I came back the next night, the same machine was on again. Same time stamp, 2:03 a.m., and somehow a new reel had been loaded, perfectly threaded, except this time the footage was different. It was of a room, a storage area I didn't recognize. Rows of metal shelves, cardboard boxes labeled with years. The camera was shaking slightly, as if someone were holding it. Then I heard breathing, not from the reel, from behind me. I turned, and for half a second, I saw something move between the stacks, a shadow darker than the dark around it. When I turned back to the reader, the image had changed. Now it showed me, standing exactly where I was, looking at the machine. I unplugged it again, this time yanking the cord from the wall. The screen went black. I stepped back, heart pounding. Then, click. The bulb flickered back to life. The machine wasn't plugged in anymore, and the footage on screen showed me still standing there, watching, except this version of me looked closer. The film stuttered, skipped, and then the me on screen lifted his hand to the lens, the exact same way the figure in the first reel had done, pointing at me. The machine shut off. The silence afterward was thick. That's when I realized the smell in the air wasn't just dust, it was film stock, burned. I told the night supervisor, Carla. She said I was being dramatic. These old machines glitch all the time, she said. They heat up and static discharges from the reels. It's not haunted, it's just analog. That night she came down with me to prove it. We both stood by the reader at 2:03 a.m. Nothing happened, no flicker, no hum. She smirked and said, "See, it's all in your..." The light came on. The machine powered up. A new reel started spinning. The footage was live. It showed the two of us standing right there from a different angle. The perspective was low, like from the floor. Carla leaned forward. "Who's filming this?" Then on the screen I saw movement behind us, a dark figure rising from the ground, as if the film itself were birthing it. Carla screamed and hit the power. The machine went dead. When we turned around, there was nothing there, except a handprint on the tile, black, oily, and still warm. Carla quit the next morning. They asked me to cover her remaining shifts until they found someone new. I said yes, because that's what you do when you can't explain something. You rationalize it until it stops feeling real. Update: 3 days later. The university decided to decommission the microfilm archives. They want everything digitized by summer, meaning I've been alone down there for 12-hour shifts, transferring reels one by one. Yesterday, I found a drawer labeled Restricted Collection. Inside were 6 unmarked reels bound with red tape. The tape had faded writing, property of Dr. Harold Klein, 1972. I'd heard that name before. He was a film archivist who supposedly died in that basement in the 70s. Heart attack, they said. I loaded one reel out of curiosity. It started normal, old lecture footage maybe, students walking between buildings, smiling. Then the reel jittered, skipped. Suddenly I was looking at myself, not from tonight, from earlier that day, eating lunch in the break room, scrolling my phone. The footage had no timestamp, no audio. Then, slowly, my filmed self looked up, straight into the camera, and smiled. The screen went black. A single frame lingered after. A handwritten note, shaky letters scratched directly into the film stock. "You're in the wrong reel." That night I heard movement in the stacks. Soft footsteps too heavy for rats. Every time I turned a corner, the air grew colder. The smell of vinegar and dust turned sharp. Chemical. When I got back to the microfilm reader, it was already on. This time there was no reel loaded, but the screen was glowing faintly. Words appeared, typed one letter at a time like an old ticker tape printer. Reel 7. Play it. I looked at the drawer again. There were only 6 reels, until there weren't. Now there were 7. The new one had fresh tape, red so dark it looked wet. I didn't want to touch it, but I did. Reel 7 started with static, then darkness, and a sound, a low humming, the kind that buzzes in your skull rather than your ears. Slowly the frame lightened. I saw the basement corridor again, but different this time. The stone walls were covered in shadows that pulsed, like something behind them was breathing. The camera turned a corner. The same microfilm reader came into view. It was on, and seated at it was me. Head tilted, face blurred. I could see the real me reflected in the glass. Both of us watching each other. Then the version of me on film looked up and said, not through speakers but directly into my head, "You keep watching, you'll switch places." The screen flared white. When my vision cleared, the machine was off again. The reel had melted into the reader. The smell of burned acetate was overwhelming. I left immediately. But when I came back the next night, something was wrong. The layout of the basement had changed. The exit door wasn't where it should have been. Every hallway looked the same shelves, same yellow lights buzzing overhead. But the turns were wrong, like I'd walked into a mirror version of the building. And then I heard it, the whirring of a film reel spinning. I followed it back to the reader. The screen was on again. This time no film was loaded at all. But the image showed a bright hallway with sunlight streaming through. The upstairs library, students walking, talking, the normal world. And then one of them, a woman carrying books, turned towards the camera and said clearly, "We can still see you." The screen went black. Update. Last night. I haven't been sleeping. Every time I close my eyes, I dream in static. Images flipping too fast to process. Old hallways, my face reflected in black glass. That burned smell that lingers when you wake. I tried quitting again. The admin office said the position doesn't exist. They have no record of a night cleaning job in the archives. I've been getting paid though. Direct deposits every 2 weeks from an account labeled Rutherford Historical Preservation Fund. The last payment memo said, "Contract extension approved." I never asked for that. Tonight I came down determined to destroy that reader. At 2 cool I unplugged it, smashed the bulb, and threw the whole machine on the floor. But before I could leave, the screen, shattered and sparking, lit up one final time. My reflection stared back from the shards, and then, faintly, the machine whispered through the speaker, "Reel complete." The lights in the basement flickered. Every reel drawer opened on its own, spilling hundreds of film strips onto the floor, and on every frame, the same image repeated. My face. Some smiling, some screaming, some looking right at me. I ran up the stairs, but the door to the ground floor wouldn't budge. Through the crack, I could see people walking past, students, librarians, but they didn't see me. I pounded on the door until my fist bled. Then a shadow fell over me from behind. The air thickened with static, and for a moment the entire world flickered, like a projector stuttering mid-reel. When it steadied again, the door opened easily. But the light on the other side wasn't sunlight. It was the pale, flickering glow of another reader. Rows of them, hundreds, and in each one, a version of me was sitting there, hunched, watching, unaware they were being watched. That was 3 nights ago. I haven't left the basement since. I don't think I can. Because when I move toward the exit now, my reflection in the machine doesn't follow me anymore. It stays sitting, smiling faintly, waiting. And every night, right at 2:03 a.m., the air fills with the smell of burnt film. Then the lights dim, and a voice I know too well whispers from every reader at once. Next reel. Next up, I got a part-time job working night shifts at a highway surveillance control center. Every camera feed updates every 10 seconds, except one, showing an empty road that hasn't existed since 1998. And last night, something started walking down it. The highway camera that watches a road that doesn't exist. I'm 30 male, and I work the night shift at a state highway surveillance center. If you've ever driven long stretches of interstate and seen those metal poles with cameras on them, we're the people who monitor them. It's not as high-tech as people imagine. Most of the cameras update every 10 seconds, grainy black and white feeds that lag whenever a storm rolls through. The system's ancient, like Windows XP ancient. Each operator covers about 60 cameras per shift. Mine are mostly along Route 41, the old interstate that cuts through the northern counties. There's one feed I wasn't supposed to have though. Camera 23B, mile 213. When I first saw it listed in my console, I thought it was a mistake. There isn't a mile 213 anymore. That section of the highway was destroyed in a flood in 1998. The whole stretch was closed, rerouted, and eventually torn down, but the feed was live. It still updates every 10 seconds, and it still shows a road. The first time I clicked on it, I thought I was looking at archived footage, something cached on an old drive. The image was clean, an empty 2-lane highway cutting through a forest, streetlights standing at perfect intervals. No vehicles, no fog, no wind. Just a still, dead road under a pale bluish light. The timestamp at the bottom corner read live 02:14:08 AM. But the weather data on the console said the cameras were under maintenance, meaning this feed shouldn't exist at all. When I asked my supervisor, Trent, he frowned. 23B, he said, that one's not ours, might be a test channel. He clicked through the system. That sector's been offline since '99. Then why is it broadcasting? He shrugged. Ghost in the code, ignore it. So I did, for about a week. Then, one night, I noticed something different. The road on the feed wasn't empty anymore. A car had appeared, headlights faint in the distance coming from the right side of the screen. It moved slowly, too slowly for highway speeds. I waited for the next frame. 10 seconds later, the car had moved maybe 20 feet. Another 10 seconds, closer. A black sedan, headlights dim as if the bulbs were weak. No license plate, no visible driver. And behind it, faintly visible in the light, something else, like movement in the trees along the shoulder. I stared too long and missed my other alerts. By the 5th refresh, the sedan had stopped directly in the middle of the lane. On the 6th, the headlights turned off. On the 7th, it was gone. Just empty road again. The timestamp didn't reset. The image didn't glitch. It was like the car had never been there. I reported it. Trent looked at me like I'd confessed to a crime. Don't click that feed again, he said. It's not ours. It's a deadline. That night he left early. The feed stayed active. At 3:11 AM, the screen flickered once. For half a second, I saw movement. Not a car this time, a person. Standing in the middle of the highway. The frame updated again and the figure was closer, maybe 50 feet from the camera. Tall, thin, head tilted at an unnatural angle like it was trying to listen to something only it could hear. Another frame, closer. By the next update, I could make out details. Clothes, dark, soaked looking. Hands, wrong, too long. And eyes, reflecting light even though there was no source. When the next frame came, the figure was gone. But a new line appeared at the bottom of the screen. Not a timestamp. Text. Daniel, can you hear me? I froze. That's my name. I didn't type anything. The console doesn't have messaging capability. 10 seconds later, another line appeared. We can see you. The entire grid of cameras flickered. Every monitor in the room went black for exactly 1 second. When they came back, all 60 feeds had changed to the same view. The empty highway, all labeled 23B. I slammed the power switch on the console. Nothing happened. The computers kept running, humming, the screens frozen on that dead stretch of road. The timestamp ticked normally. 03:13:21. 3:13:22. 3:13:23. Then, mid-second, it stuttered, and all the feeds updated at once. Now the figure was standing in the center of the road again. Closer. So close the face filled the frame. The mouth was open, but the expression wasn't screaming. It was smiling, wide enough to split skin. Then the lights in the building went out. The emergency generator kicked in 20 seconds later. When the system rebooted, every feed except 23B was gone. I checked the log. It showed 36 data deletions at 03 AM. No record of how, no trace of the others. Only that one line of code left. Camera 23B, active. The next day, I confronted Trent again. He looked exhausted. "Look," he said, "I shouldn't be telling you this, but that sector was destroyed. You know that flood that wiped out Route 41? There were workers down there when it happened. Maintenance crew. The cameras stayed on just long enough to record them getting swept away." He rubbed his eyes. "They say the feeds never shut off properly. Some techs swore they kept seeing that road, kept hearing the system ping like it was still connected." He leaned closer. "They pulled the plug in 99, physically ripped the lines out. But if 23B is still broadcasting, it's not from here." Update, 2 nights later. I shouldn't have come back to work, but the console auto-logged me in the moment I sat down. Camera 23B was already open. No trees this time, just fog. Thick, heavy, rolling fog swallowing the road. The timestamp still read, live. Then, movement. A shape walked out of the fog toward the camera. A man in a reflective vest carrying a flashlight. At first, I thought it was another operator playing a prank, until the next frame updated and I saw his face, or what was left of it. The skin looked waterlogged, split, eyes clouded white. His name tag was half torn off, but I could make out T. Henderson. That was the name of one of the flood victims from Trent's story. The man stared straight at the camera. Then the text appeared again, "We're still here." I hit print screen to save the image. The printer spat out nothing but blank paper, except for the faint outline of a road at the bottom of each sheet. Wet marks. When I touched them, my fingertips came away damp. At 3:12, the fog on screen began to thin. The road behind the man was filling with headlights, a dozen of them, all facing the wrong direction. Cars submerged halfway in dark water, lights flickering like dying fireflies. Something in the water moved between them, something big. Each frame showed it closer, a shape dragging itself through the wreckage. Long arms, hands flat against the asphalt, fingers like cables. And as it moved, the water rippled upward, like gravity didn't apply. By the last frame, the camera had tilted sideways, and a new line of text appeared. "It's above you." The ceiling vent above my workstation rattled. Dust fell onto the keyboard. I didn't look up. Trent quit the next morning. No notice, no message. Just left his badge on the console. When I asked where he'd gone, the day supervisor said there's never been anyone by that name in the department. His workstation was empty. No files, no login history. Just one printed photo taped to the monitor. The flooded highway, and written across the bottom in faded marker, "Mile 213, do not connect." Update, last night. I brought my phone this time. I wasn't supposed to. They're banned near the control systems, but I had to know if anyone else could see it. At 2:10, I started recording the screen. Camera 23B flickered once. Then, for the first time, I saw movement from behind the lens. The image shook like someone was holding the camera by hand. It turned away from the road toward the woods, and for a second the screen filled with faces, dozens of them, half submerged, mouths open, eyes glowing faintly blue. The camera turned back toward the highway, and standing there clear as day was me, wearing my reflective vest, headset still on. My own face looked up at the lens, smiled and mouthed the words, "We're back online." The feed cut out. When I replayed the video on my phone, all I got was a still image of an empty highway. No fog, no cars, no faces. Just one text overlay. Burned into the file metadata. Recorded 03:12 AM, February 8, 1998. That was before I was even hired, before the flood. Before I was even out of high school, but my ID badge was in the frame. Same number, same name. The system's been pinging all day now. Every console, every backup terminal. A single repeating message. Camera 23B, Active connection requested. No one's been able to stop it. They've started calling it a phantom loop. I know better. I think the road's back, and it's looking for a new operator. I'm leaving tonight, but if you ever see a maintenance truck parked near a section of road that isn't on your map, and there's a man inside watching multiple screens, don't stop, don't honk, don't wave, just keep driving, because if he looks up at you and smiles, it's already too late, you're being recorded, and soon you'll be on the next feed.